Let's redefine game design docs. With SpaceDraft, you can plan any game faster than you can think it. It's a great way to take the thoughts inside your head and put them into a digital space. Organize and flesh out your ideas so that anyone can understand them and get everyone on the same page for when you make that final product. SpaceDraft is a working doc and a pitching tool all rolled into one. Since you can customize, personalize, and play out your action, your game design doc can become your pitch. It's an all-in-one visual communication tool. Begin by uploading a background and inserting objects that accurately represent your world. By setting a time frame for your world and adding in a script, you're creating a framework to help flesh out the details of your project. You can even make notes to pop up when and where you want them to. Layer your world into infinite scenes to explain setting, plot, narrative, and to create an immersive story and experience. When your idea is planned out, it'll make bringing it into a reality so much easier. And you can plan anything. Platform games, action-adventure games, tabletop games, you name it, you can do it. You can even upload sound and use voice record to set the scene and narrate gameplay. Goodbye paper maps stapled on top of more paper maps. See you later, storyboards. It's time to tell a new kind of story and revolutionize game design docs. Collaborate with your team in real time. Export your work and share it with others. No matter how crazy your idea is, you can bring it to life with SpaceDraft. Never be misunderstood again.
Hello, my name's Lucy Cook and I'm the founder of SpaceDraft. It's great to be here. I'm on the chat. I'm going to hand you over to Ben, who's going to talk you through and walk you through how you can start building your amazing idea for any game out in SpaceDraft so you can share it to someone and they can understand what you're thinking, because that's why we built it. Have a great time, and any questions, just sing out. Bye.
Hey guys, my name's Ben, and today I'm going to be walking you through the process of ideation and design. So here's a project I made before in SpaceDraft for a tabletop roleplay D&D world. Here you can visualize your world, and you can focus in on all the different details and travel between all the different locations of your world as well. You can also easily write in stats, story, and pretty much anything else that you need for your next session of the game. Unfortunately, we don't have time today for me to walk through this entire project, but instead, let me walk you through how I made another game. We'll be building this one together today, and I'll show you how SpaceDraft can improve your ideation and design process and help you plan, pitch, share, show, and sell any game that you have in mind, no matter how crazy. So head over to spacedraft.com and click Login or Start for free. From here, you'll be taken to the My Projects page where you can see all your old projects. Simply click Create Project, and then click Start from Scratch. From here, this is going to take us to an area where you can start designing your own SpaceDraft. So at the start here, you can add in your own title. So we're going to put in Lumberjack Video Game because that is what we're designing specifically today. But of course, you can put whatever you want in there. Then here we simply click Start. So in order to map out our imaginations and bring our world to life, there's three really important factors we need that are pivotal to SpaceDraft. We need, well, a world to bring our world to life. So we need some sort of background that showcases that world. We need time. We need to set the time that the world takes place in. And then we also need to actually write the story. We need to put up a bit of a script, if you will. So we're going to focus on those three things right now. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on that background. We're going to bring our world to life. So there's a couple different ways that you can do that here. You could add in a map, for example. So maybe your world takes place in our actual world. Maybe you want to go to Madison Square Garden. You can do that. You could have it be in grayscale. You could physically represent it like that. You could have it be a more sort of standard map as well. Or you could have it be an actual kind of satellite view of Madison Square Garden. Pretty cool. Additionally, you could go to the Suggestions tab here. These suggestions are very similar to the templates we saw before. So what these templates are pre-made backgrounds that you could use to bring your world to life. And there's a whole bunch of different examples here that could get those creative juices flowing. Maybe you'll look at these and go, you know what? Yeah, I do want a racetrack or a cave system. That's what my world is. So you simply click on it, and there you go. There's your background. But maybe you go, that's not actually quite what I want. I want something a little bit more specific. Or actually, maybe I want nothing at all. You can have that. You can have an empty map. And you can change the color too. So just a plain old empty yellow space. Or a blue space. Or, if you have a specific image in mind, which is what we're going to do today, you can delete this by clicking the trash can button up here. And you can add your own image in, which I'll do now. So after clicking and dragging in our image here, we've got this cool looking background here. But of course, you've also got some of the ones you added in before here as well. Certainly very helpful if you want to go back and add the old ones in. And now we'll click Apply. So that's in here now. And actually this blue looks quite nice. We could do a green. I prefer the blue. That's our background that we've added. From here, let's set the time. So in order to bring our world to life, we've set up our space, but now we need to set the time for this world. So maybe you're creating a space draft for a picnic plan that you have with a friend, and you need to be there for exactly 30 minutes. And then after that, you need to go to the movies or something. So you can do that here. You can set your time to be in minutes, hours, seconds, whatever you'd like. Or you could set it to be in a more standard 12 or 24-hour clock, totally up to you. Or you could have it be in steps or stages, perhaps. Again, you can customize these to fit your own custom needs. Or you can really customize it. You can do your own kind of custom time settings, like galactic years, for example. So it can really be customizable and perfect for whatever it is that you're trying to do. But for what we're trying to do, we're going to go into steps. And then we're going to say maybe about, for the duration, maybe about 6. And that's pretty much everything we need to do there. So now we're going to click apply and our world's been brought to life and the time is here in the timeline. We'll cover that a little bit later. Look at how much we've accomplished. Go us. So now that we've created our world, we need to inhabit this world with people, items, objects, all sorts of different stuff. So how do we do that? Well, we move over here to the pins tab and we click on it, and this will take us to the pin library. So pins are essentially those things, people, items, objects, all sorts of different stuff that you can use to bring your idea or your story to life. So how do you add them in? It's as simple as clicking on this add pin button here, and we've got this red dot that you can manipulate and move. But maybe you want something a little more specific. Well, you can browse through some of our suggested pins here. We've got literally thousands of them that you can use to bring your stories to life. We've actually got a little lumberjack man here, so we may as well bring him in. There we go. So suggested pins or adding in just a sort of standard dot like that is one thing you can do, but maybe you want a more specific thing, like say camping, for example. We've got literally thousands of camping related pins or anything else. Feel free to just search it up yourself and see if there are pins in there for you, because there definitely will be. But we can manipulate these pins even further. So one thing you can do, let's just move our scene over here so we've got a bit more space to play with, and we'll close this down. So if we double click on our pin here, it'll open up a tab where we can further edit these. So one thing you can do is rename it. So we could call this red dot. You can also toggle whether or not the title shows up. So as you see here, it says red dot underneath the red dot, or it doesn't. So there's a few different ways you can play with that. Maybe you don't like that this is a red dot. Well, you can change it to be a triangle, a camera, a star, whatever you want here. Or you can even change the color of it as well. So there's a lot of different things you can do. You can also change the opacity of your pins as well, so they can be a little bit more sort of distilled or just as bright as they need to be. Another thing you can do is if you don't like this specific image here, you can go over to the library and you can browse through, again, all the different suggested pins here. So you could change this star to be a bag of money, perhaps. Simply click apply, and now it's changed shape. So that's one thing you can do. Or if you would like to go even more custom with it, you can click on the Create Shape button here. This will bring up this window here, which you can further manipulate and make sort of bigger or smaller, and you can add in all sorts of stuff here. So as you can see here, you can add in text, arrows, lines, shapes, all sorts of stuff, and you can even kind of change the colors of it as well if you'd like. And again, change up the opacity. So feel free to play around with these different tools and you can really build your own custom pins. So we've added in this custom pin here, but maybe you're not really interested in putting it into your scene. So if you want to delete it, simply right click on it and click remove from scene and it's gone. However, if you want to get it back, it is still here in the pin library as a little sort of suggestion there. But if you want to actually really delete it, you can just delete it forever. But maybe you want to add in your own unique images. So you can do so by simply clicking and dragging them in yourself. Or another way to do so is to click add pin here, click on it again, click this upload button, and you can bring in your own images, which I'll do so now. So I've added in this platform here, which we're going to be able to use to bring our scene to life. Right now it's a little bit smaller, but we're going to make it a little bit bigger later as I explain some more of the features. So that's one way that you can introduce all your different pins into the scene. So using what I covered before, I've just added in a couple other pins here, which I'm going to introduce to the scene very soon. But for now, let me show you how you can further manipulate and move these pins. So we're going to right click on the pin, and it's going to bring up this tab here with all these different features here. Let's go over the first one here, which is properties. So clicking on that simply just opens up the pin properties tab again. So it's just another way to access that, so you can very quickly manipulate and change things here if you need to. Some of the other features that I'm going to quickly cover, but I'm going to go through all of them. The first one is rotate and resize. So like we said before, this pin's quite small, but you can simply rotate it and make it a little bit bigger. Well, that's resize, excuse me. This is rotate, so you can change the direction if you want, or I'll just press Control or Command Z and it's back to its normal state. So that way it's a little bit bigger and it fits the scene a little bit more nicely. Another nice little feature you can do, right-clicking once again, everything's on the right click, you can duplicate your pin. So now there's 2 copies, which is very cool. So I'm just gonna do that one more time here, duplicate pin, and now we're sort of setting up our scene here. And of course you can just click and drag your pins over and place them wherever you desire. You can duplicate them again, and there you go. We've pretty much set up our entire little scene here that we had before. Very helpful. But let's go over some of the other things that you can do when you right click on a pin now. Okay, so with this feature here, I'm going to showcase it on our little lumberjack friend here. So let's zoom in a little bit closer so we can see it more easily. So how we're going to do that is we're going to press Control on our keyboard, or Command if we're using a Mac. And as we hold that down, we're going to zoom in with our mouse wheel, or even zoom in with our trackpad if you don't have a mouse. So now we're a little bit closer, or maybe we want to be a little bit further away, up to you. And now that we're a little closer, let me show you this cool feature. So one thing you can do, right click, you can flip horizontal or flip vertical, either one here. So we're going to flip vertical for now. So now he's doing a handstand. Or you can right click again, flip horizontal. Now he's doing a handstand, but he's facing that way. If you don't want him to be doing that, of course, you can just press Command or Control Z and it'll take you back to how it was before. So that's one option there. So you can kind of change the orientation there. Or just move our lumberjack friend over here. So right now he's over the top of this platform. Maybe we want to change that though. So let's right click and let's say send to back. So now he's behind that. Or if we want him back to the front, we press send to front. So it's a really good way if you're placing pins and you want one to be on the top or underneath. Great tool exactly for that. So there you go. That's one thing you can do with pins. But now let me show you how you can add in a path to your pins, so you can really bring the movement to life and really showcase the story or features or whatever it is that you want to say in your scene. You can really effectively illustrate it. So like we saw at the start of the video, I'm going to showcase to you how to add movement to your individual pins in the scene so you can really bring it to life. So there's 3 ways to do that. If we right click on the pin and we select add path, we can draw a straight line path in kind of whatever direction we want, but it has to be a straight line path. So when I let go, that creates our path there. But there's some other ways we can do it as well. If we don't really want it to be a straight line path, right click on it again and go draw path instead. So now it's not needing to be a straight path. It can be a curvy path and you can have it go any direction you want. It can land up there. So there's that. But maybe you want to do a bit more of a sort of complex route that has a lot of sort of stages to it. So right click again. Let's go add route this time. So what this lets us do, it's slightly different. We can draw in multiple different directions and add in any kind of weird, crazy path we want. I don't know how he's defying the laws of physics jumping like this, but for the sake of this example here, that's the different ways that you can use it as a straight line path, a curvy path, or a more sort of complex route that has sort of multiple destinations or directions in that regard. So that's, oh, and then just to finish up that adding of a route, we click the X here and it places it in. We'll drag the timeline down here all the way back, and if we press spacebar, it'll play it through for us. So there he is running forward with that straight path. Here's that crazy, weird, curvy path we saw before with draw path, and here we're doing that complex route where he defies the laws of physics. Amazing. So that's the different ways that you can add in movement to your scene, but we can get even more specific with that. So what we'll do is we'll head over down to the bottom here and press this time button to open up the timeline. So I've added in another pin here. As you can see, there's 2 of them now, and I've given them some different movements here so that I can illustrate to you all the different ways you can use it. So first off, with this original Pixel Man that we've got here, our little lumberjack friend, we had that old route that we had before where he did all these crazy flips and stuff. We're going to get rid of that because we don't need it anymore. How do we do so? We right click on this box and we say delete path. So we'll do this for all of the different ones here because we don't need them anymore. And now we've just got the one specific path that we wanted before. Of course, we do have the old one here as well. So let's also just remove him from the scene. Nice and easy. So let me quickly play this through. And right now it's a little bit slower. So if we want to speed it up, the best way to do so is to press the rabbit button here, and it'll move physically faster. But if it's a little bit too fast, we can always press the turtle to slow it down a little bit as well. So let's get it to a nice little speed there, move back to the start, and we'll press the play button to play it through. So we can see we've got him jumping up here, moving across, waiting a little bit, and then jumping over here, and then he disappears. So let me show you how that's then represented in the timeline here. When he disappears here, we get these zebra stripes here in this box. The zebra stripes there represent the fact that he has disappeared. Here, we have this sort of normal looking box that's sort of a bit more gray with this line through it. That implies that there is a physical path that this lumberjack guy here is traveling down. So every time he moves, it's represented by one of these boxes. When he's static and doing nothing, it just looks like this. There's nothing there because nothing's happening. But for example, we've got all these individual pins placed here. Why aren't they showing up in the timeline? Because a pin only shows up in the timeline when you've assigned some form of movement to it. So right now this axe is static, but if I add a path to it, even if it's just a little tiny path, it then appears in the timeline. And also remember that it appears wherever my specific timeline line is here. So if I want something to appear on step 2, let me add in a path, then it appears in step 2. So there you go. It's sort of respondent of wherever you are specifically. So that's certainly important to note. So that's 3 different states: the sort of average normal moving path, the static path, the hidden path, but there's one more. So as we see right here, when he jumps up across here, he has this little bit here where he moves across the platform. Maybe you want it to be hidden, but you still want it to be moving. So the way to do that, right click on the box and say hide path. So when we play it through, he jumps all the way up, disappears, but when he reappears, he's over there. So this way, there's still that path physically happening. Click here to highlight the movement of the pin. And as I play it through, we see that he is moving, but he's hidden. Then he reappears and does what he needs to do. So there you go. That's all the different states that you can have within the timeline to represent your movement. So let's say, for example, that this specific step from 1 to 2 here is taking a little bit too long for your liking and you want it to be a little bit quicker. So something you can do is change the duration of the boxes that you've got. And that's as simple as just clicking and dragging to make it a bit smaller. You can even move where it starts as well. So now, at the start of step 1 here, he's going to wait and then move very quickly. So you can manipulate and move your boxes to fit your needs in any which way that you desire. Additionally too, if you remember before when we set the time, I set the duration to be sort of around 6 or 7 steps there. And that's represented by this red end timeline. So if we wanted to, we could move it all the way to the start, play our scene through, and it'll end right away. So wherever this red marker is, that's the end of your scene. So you can change and manipulate that in any way you want. And as you can see here, I'm clicking control and scrolling on my mouse wheel just to make the timeline a little bit bigger or smaller. And I'm going to move this back to here on step 7 there. So that's a good way to know where your scene starts and ends. One other important thing as well, you know how before we clicked here and said hide path. Another important way you can do that is to right click on the pin and select hide, and that'll then be respondent in the timeline as well. And obviously this is being done in steps. If as you're doing your project you realize maybe another time setting is more important, you can always go up to the gear here and you can set your time again. Or the gear is also down here on the timeline and this will instantly take you to time so that you can change it there. So a lot of different ways that you can play around with the timeline here. So I'm going to quickly redo this scene here and set the movement that I want for this scene so that it is exactly what I'm after. Be right back. So there you go, let me play through the scene now by pressing spacebar. You can see that he jumps up, grabs the wood, it disappears, grabs it, and then the axe moves over into his hand. And all that's represented here in the timeline, and it ends when it hits the red marker. If you want to, you can click and drag these so that you can reorder them in the timeline as well, just for it to be a bit easier to navigate or just nicer to look. So that's all the timeline and movement stuff done. Let's move over now into the script. So to open up the script, simply move over here and click on this script tab here. Clicking it will open up the script for you and you can type in anything you want into the script here. Let me show you some of the specific features so that you can really enhance the way that you use the script here. The first one here is the insert link button, which allows you to hyperlink text. So the text we could say is click here and we could put in a link there. We'll click apply and it generates a little hyperlink for you. And if you do control or command click, you can open up the link. Alternatively too, if you paste a YouTube link into the script, it'll actually generate a little preview for you and you can make it a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger as well, totally up to you. So I've just quickly added in a little bit of text here to showcase some of the other features to you. So the first one that we're going to do is we're going to highlight this text here, and we're going to go over to this little T style button here. We can then click here on the heading button, and it makes our text a little bit bigger. We also have some options for bold, italics, underline, or strike through, so we can really further personalize our text, which is really helpful for sure. The other button that's really interesting here is this Set Timecode button. So by clicking on this diamond here, it adds in this timecode here. Now this corresponds to where you are in the timeline below. So what this does is for step 1, let me just open up the timeline to show it in a bit more detail. For step 1, from here to number 2, it says to you what specifically happens. So in your script, you could say Lumberjack Jack jumps onto the first platform. So for step 1, we see exactly that. So this is a really great way of really personalizing and effectively illustrating what it is that's being shown and placing it into the script there so that anyone who's reading or following along really clearly understands what you're trying to say. So let's do it for step 2 here. So because our little line here is on step 2, if we press that timecode button again, step 2 will come up. But maybe we actually want to make it step 3. If we hold down on it, this little bar here will come up and we could change it to step 3. We have to make sure that this is in sequence though. So for example, if I wanted to go back here and make this step 4, it's not going to let me. It's going to come up as step 2 there, and it's not going to let me go further than step 3 because it has to be in sequence. So something to keep in mind, of course, but certainly an easy thing to manipulate there. So we'll move that back to step 2. So we've got a little bit of order and sequence going on. There you have it. So let me move down. There we go. So what do we reckon happens here in the second step? Let's play it through and find out. So he jumps over to the next platform and gets the wood. So we'll type that in there, a little copy paste, and we've got our text in there. This is a really great way to really personalize the action that's happening within the scene. Quickly added in some more text just to showcase another feature. If we go back to this T style button here, we can number the little items that we've put in here, or we can make them dot points instead. So again, more ways to personalize. Additionally, something else we can do is we can align our text as well, as we can see here. So if we highlight this, we can go and align it in the middle, or if we highlight it one more time, we can have it be aligned to the side there as well. So a lot of different ways that you can customize and personalize the way that your text is being placed in here. Another fun feature, if you want to specifically make reference to some of your pins, something that you can do, let's just delete this here, is if we click on this little pin button up here, we can tag our individual pins. So we've got our lumberjack man here. We can click on that pin and it pops up here, which is certainly cool, isn't it? So now when we click on this, it's going to highlight the pin there. Let me show you it again. Brings up the pin, showcasing the movement that it's going through and draws your attention towards it. So this way too, if you want to make sure there's no confusion, if someone goes, well, who's Lumberjack Man? They can click on that and they'll see exactly what you're referring to. So very helpful there. Additionally too, if we right click on the pin and go into properties, whatever color we make the pin down here is then reflected over here as well. So you can personalize it even further and really colorize it and make it look really nice and pretty. So that's very nice to see for sure. One other important feature is the ability to add in images. So the way to do that is just head over here to this Insert Media button, and clicking on it allows us to add in images of anything we've previously inserted. So if we want an image of the axe, we could always put that in. Or, if we don't, we can always just simply delete it by pressing backspace or delete over it. And then additionally, we could add in our own individual media. So I've got an image here that I'm going to click and drag in now. There we go. And once I click in over it, I can click apply and it'll appear here. And of course I can resize this media to be bigger or smaller. Let's make it nice and big there. There we go. And we've added in an image. So that's super helpful. That's pretty much everything you can do with the script. There is also this portal button here. However, I'm going to come back to this later because we need to do a couple other things before we can use that. But that essentially is everything you can do with the script. I'm going to personalize this a little bit further and make it look really nice and pretty and fit all the individual action that's happening here. And I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so I've added everything in here and made it look nice and pretty. Let me show you one additional feature that I think is quite helpful as well. So here we've said that he grabs the axe. Let's physically tag this pin, but there's another way to do it. Instead, we're going to type hashtag. It's going to come up with all our individual pins here. I'm going to click on axe, and that tags our pin. Right now it's red though. It's kind of boring. It's kind of the same as the red up here. So let's personalize that even further. Let's right click on the axe and go properties. And so of course we can select from all these prearranged colors, but if we click over here, we can actually add in our own unique colors. So why don't we make it a nice brown to fit with the brown of the handle, click out of it, and we're all good. It looks kind of nice there, doesn't it? So that's perfect. That's the script, for the most part, all done. So now that that's all done, let's close the script here, and then let's right click on the background because there's some other cool stuff we can play with. Simply by right clicking on the background, we can see here that we can add in a pin this way. So just another way to add in a pin, which is pretty helpful. Or we could actually rotate and resize the background. So if we really want, we could have the background be on an angle, which we don't need it to be on an angle, or we could have it be much bigger or much smaller, which we don't need. So we're certainly not going to do that, but it's nice to know that we can. Another nice feature is we can add in a mention. So here's our mention here. We can make it a little bit bigger if you want as well. Essentially what a mention is, think of it like a little post-it note that can appear at different times during your project. It can act as like a little reminder or just to serve as a little additional pop of information. So it's a pretty powerful tool that can help improve the quality of your scene and make things really clear for everyone who's looking and listening. So it certainly helps with that ideation and design process as a whole. So let me show you all the different features you can do with a mention. So if we hover over the mention here, we'll see these three little dots appear. Let me just zoom in a tad so it's a little bit easier to see. So there's those three dots. We'll click on that, and there's all our different options that we can play with here. So of course we can just straight up close our mention here, which we certainly don't want to do that right now. We can insert a link. Again, this is very similar to what we saw before. So you can just add in a hyperlink with some text. Very easy, very simple. You can insert some media. Again, very simple and similar to what we saw before. So it's nice to know that this little mention can pop up and have some images in it that can really aid the visualization of your ideas here. Certainly very helpful. We can also mention or reference the mention. We can mention the mention, some might say. So we'll click on reference mention, and then it's going to open up the script here. So say we want this specific mention to correspond with the text that we have in step 2. So if we click on the text we have in step 2 here, this little asterisk is going to appear here. It's going to specifically highlight the mention. So as people are reading through the script, they'll notice this asterisk and can click on it, and it'll bring the mention to their attention. So that's certainly quite helpful as a great way to really, very similar to like tagging your pins and time coding it. People can know exactly when they need to see specific information. And so there's no confusion at all. You'll never be misunderstood again. It's a very helpful tool. So that's that. Let's go into some of the other stuff now. So I've just opened up the timeline and I've just changed up this mention a little bit just so it makes more sense with the actual project itself. So we'll click on these dots again and let's say change the time the mention shows. So right now it opens up at the start of step 1 and ends at the end of step 3. So that's cool, but maybe we want it to be a little different. So if we just manipulate and drag through these little lines here, we can change the time that it shows. So it can be on for a long time or a very, very short time. So here we're going to change it so that it opens up at the start of step 2 and then ends on step 3. We'll click this X and that'll save that there. Move it back to the start and we'll play it through. And there we go. It opens at the start of step 2 and closes at the end of step 3. Perfect. Let's move back here on the timeline to get it back up. And we'll click on these dots again. So something we can also do is have it set to always be closed. So press that. So now when we play it through, we see there's nothing there. But when it gets to the start of step 2, we see that it appears here, but there's no actual physical mention popping up. So this way it shows people that you can interact with this mention and they can click on it to investigate it further. But this is just a good way in case your mention is massive and huge so that it's not blocking anything in the actual scene. So it's just a bit more of a subtle way of showing it, which is certainly very helpful. Some other stuff we can do here is display indefinitely. So instead of it only appearing on step 2 and then ending here, it's just there from step 2. And it's always there, except we've of course set it to be always closed. So let's set it to always auto open. And then we'll get back there, play it again. There we go. So that's certainly very helpful. And that's not going to close now at all because you've told it not to. So that's a nice way to deal with that there. And we can unlock that so that it just displays when we previously asked it to. Very helpful. Some other cool stuff is you can change the color of your mention as well. Let's make it this nice yellow color here so that it really, really pops. We can change the size of it as well, and you can manipulate it and move it down a little bit as well, so it can be wherever you want it to be. Again, very, very helpful. Or you could just press this button here to remove the mention. It's gone forever. Or you just press Control or Command Z and it's back again. Another really fun thing with mentions, if we right click anywhere on the background, we can click here and say Show Mentions on the Timeline. We'll click that. See this little dot here? That's where the mention begins. So if you've forgotten where your mention was, just simply pop that back open and it'll show you there on the timeline. And it even is here too on the little preview as well. So that's quite helpful. It's a nice little tool to know exactly when it needs to pop up. Of course, you can get rid of that there just by clicking it again and it's gone. Very cool, isn't it? Another really cool thing you can play around with is Markup. So we're going to click on that here. And this is fairly similar to the layout we saw before when we were making our own custom pins. We can add in our own text. So we could call this the Lumberjack video game there. If I can spell video game, there we go. And we can move that over to the top as well if we want. So we can add like a little title or something. We could even add our own little kind of custom shape as well. So maybe we could give this game a nice little border. I know that it's all a white screen. Hold on. Let me just get rid of that. There we go. So a nice little border around it there. And also if we wanted to too, we could change the color and we could sort of, I don't know, maybe illustrate some different things here and physically showcase all sorts of different stuff there. So the difference between the markup tool versus the tool we had before, which was the create shape tool or the custom pin tool, whatever you want to call it, is that the custom pin tool, let me just make something nice quickly here. Not sure what that is, but I've made something there just to illustrate my point. So the create shape tool lets us make a new pin. Whereas the markup tool, we can't actually move or change the things that we've added in. The markup tool is like literally taking a marker and marking up the background, kind of drawing over the top of it. Whereas the custom pin tool lets us make unique things. So just a little gentle warning there in case you draw this beautiful image in the markup tool, only to realize you can't actually move it later on. It's a mistake I've made in the past, and it's a tragic mistake. So I'd hate for that to happen to you, good sirs and madams. So I've got your back. But there you go. That's a nice way that you can sort of further pretty up your background and make it look nice, sweet, and perfect. Then we remove this from the scene because it's unsightly and we no longer need it. But makes our scene look a little bit nicer, doesn't it? That's the markup tool. So one of the most important things you can use in SpaceDraft is the master. So let's click on that. And this shows us all the different scenes that we can create. So this is the current one we're in here called New Scene 1. It's a boring name. Let's name it Level 1 instead, so we can always change it if we want. We can then right-click on it and we can duplicate it there. So then we'll click on this. It's now called Level 2. We'll rename it to Level 1 Copy, just so we know. And we see the exact same scene again in a different place. So this is a nice way that you can kind of edit stuff, but you can also use this to make brand new scenes. So we'll call this one Level 2. And once again, we just click start. We can set our background. We can set our time. We essentially just do what we normally do. And this way, well, here, let me quickly make a little scene so I can give you an example there. So quickly whack this little scene together. There's no movement on there yet, but you at least get the idea. So this way, if you were to illustrate the entire game that you're making or the entire play that you're writing, whatever it is that you're using SpaceDraft for, you can showcase all the different levels, all the different areas that you want to cover, and you can put it in a really easy to access way so that people can just trawl through them and see all the different stuff that you want to say. It's certainly really helpful, isn't it? And if we don't want this level 1 copy that we duplicated, let's just right click on it and press delete, and then it's gone and we no longer care about it. So before I'd mentioned this mysterious thing called portals. Now we can finally use them. So I'm going to open up the script here, which we've already done, and we see this portal button here. It's called Connect to Scene, but we like to call it a good old portal. So it's going to come up here with the only other scene we've got, which is level 2, but if we have more, which, hey, here, why not? Let's add another one. We can see the other one appears there. That's certainly very helpful. So if we click on this portal here, like a normal magic portal, it takes us to that scene. So this could be a really nice way in the script to say, you know, to see the next level, click below. And then they click below and they can be transported to the next level. So it's a nice way to sort of write out the sequence of events. So maybe you're making like a choose your own adventure book or something, and you could physically showcase to people, okay, go to the next chapter by moving to the next scene. And here's a button that lets you do so. And don't forget as well, you can also put them here in your mentions as well, in your little post-it note guys. So here, connect to scene, level 2, boom, it's there. If you click on it, it'll take you to level 2. How good is that? So that's one way to use the master, but you'll notice there's this button here called cover. What does that one do? Well, if we click on it, it's another way to visualize your master. So if you click here on this one, it'll take you to this specific level, or if you click on this, it'll take you to this specific scene. So it's just another way to visualize it. But you can personalize it even further if you want. So you could add in a background and you could really stylize this even further. So you can click and drag an image here, or you can click on this little background button here, and it'll take you to some pre-made backgrounds that you can use yourself. Or very similar to the backgrounds we saw at the start of the video, you could have it be empty, you could upload your own image, or you could put a map in, totally up to you. But for now, we're going to do this. We're going to use this suggestion here because I think it looks kind of nice. We'll give it a green backdrop behind it. Why not? We'll click apply. There we go. From here, we can move around these different scenes so they can kind of do whatever the heck we want them to. But let's make them do some even more cool stuff. So if we right click on them, we can, well, open the scene. It'll take us straight there. But we'll go back to edit cover and make them look even prettier. We can edit the scene thumbnail, so we can browse through. We can actually even rename our scene here. Why not? Let's do it. We'll call it level 1, but we'll spell it that way this time. We'll click browse, and maybe we want it to be this coin. Sure. So now it's that coin instead of that other image before. Why not? From here, we can resize the thumbnail so we can make it a little bit bigger, and then we can even connect it to other scenes. So this could be a cool way, especially if you have multiple different scenes. So let's add some more scenes in. So now we've got 3. So it could be, hey, you start at level 1 and you could go to level 2, or you know what you could do? You could just transition immediately into level 3, 4, or 5, whatever. So there's multiple different ways that you could personalize your master here so that things are really super clear. And so people could know, okay, so the progression I can go down is from here to there. That sort of thing. Or I can do a shortcut and go here, whatever. So it's a nice way to visualize your space and showcase to people, hey, these are how all these different things interact with one another. So again, your ideas, your ideation, your design, it's clear, concise, and easy, and anyone can understand it. Pretty cool, isn't it? There's also a markup button here as well, which, once again, this is pretty similar to what we've seen before. I'm not going to do anything here, but, you could add interesting shapes, or you could draw things in or add some text, whatever. It's totally up to you. Just use the eraser button and get rid of that there. But the possibilities are endless here to continue to mark this up and personalize this even further. There's even an export button here, but let's get back to that one a little bit later because we're going to cover that in more detail later on in the video. But there's certainly a lot you can do here, which is really cool. So that's pretty much everything that we need to do for this project, but there's a couple other things we need to do just for the little finishing touches. Let's click up here. And we can see a couple different things. So there's this little tour button here, which allows you to take a virtual tour of SpaceDraft to help guide you through all the things that I've talked about today. So if you need a bit of a refresher, be sure to click on that. If not, let's click back on this projects button here. And this is going to take us back to the My Projects page we were at before. We can see our project here is at the very start, but it's kind of bland right now. It needs a thumbnail like these other ones and some descriptions and stuff. So let's click on this little edit button here. And we can browse through some of the images that we already had in there, or we can upload our own just from wherever ones you've currently made on Photoshop or something, totally up to you. We'll click on this, we'll hit apply, and now we've got a nice little thumbnail there. We can add in a description as well, close it there, and it looks a lot prettier and a bit more presentable. Isn't that nice? This button here allows us to duplicate it as well. So there you go, we've got a copy there. So if we want to make some edits, but keep the original one the same, we can do so. So a very helpful tool, that's for sure. But if we don't want that duplicate SpaceDraft, we can just click this little bin button here and it'll go away. So we can click back on it, open the project back up, and here it is. And another fun little feature, if we go back to our master and we look at this version of it here, it comes up with project overview. We click on that. Same tab, so we can edit the description further, change the thumbnail, do whatever we want. So a couple different ways to do that there. So we've essentially finished there. That's basically everything we need to do. Let's play through the scene and make sure it's all up to scratch. So there he is grabbing the wood. We can follow along with our script here. And he's got his axe, his very big axe. It's almost as big as him. But well done. That's our project. Nicely done. Maybe we want to collaborate with someone though. We want to add in another level. We want to do a few other things. So how do we do so? Well, let's click on the Send and Collaborate button here. And we can click the collaborate option. So doing so allows us to send an email to whoever we want. We can make them an editor, we can make them just view only, whatever. And by adding them in there, they can collaborate on the project with us and they can edit it with us in real time. Amazing. So we click save, we can send that to them, or you can just click cancel if you're not too sure you want to collaborate with Mr. John Doe at email.com. Otherwise, you can always send your project to someone for them to view. So there's two ways you can do so. You can go send scene or send project. So let's click send scene. So this lets you just send the specific scene that you're currently in, just that one scene and nothing else. So you can either copy the link and then that you can just send them the link and they can view it that way. Or you could send it to them on all these different options here, like an email or something, pop in the email, send it to them, whatever works. Or if you don't just want to send the one scene, you can send the whole project. And that's going to come up here with the image we saw before, showcasing all the different scenes we've put in. Again, you can copy the link, you can send it in an email, you can send it through and all sorts of different stuff. There's a lot of different ways that you can export it off for the world to see. So that's certainly pretty cool, isn't it? There's a lot that you can do there, and there's a lot of great ways for people to view your space draft so that your ideas are clear and you can communicate it with everyone and anyone. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Hopefully now your ideas on ideation and design can be totally reimagined with SpaceDraft. And hopefully now you'll never be misunderstood again. Thanks so much for listening.